Welcome back. This is class 3. This is the module on boundaries. We've been working on checking out red light, yellow light, green light, and getting familiar with the amygdala hijack. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and be a little more positive. Hey, that's fun. If we are going to look at conflict, we're actually going to need to know the primary way to avoid most conflict. There's a technique I want to share with you that can help you avoid a lot of the really tough BS, negative points on the Gottman ratio, amygdala hijacks in your relationships. It is asking for what we want. It is asking for what we want. That's right. So this is something that I found in myself, in working with my intimate partner, and in coaching people in relationships, that you can avoid. This is not a scientific number, but I'm going to throw it out there. I think you could avoid 90% of your conflicts in a given relationship by learning to ask for what you want. Okay. Why is that, Reverend Fudgeon? Well, let me see. Number one is that your brain, or your imaginal, this is what my Lama calls this aspect of ourselves, the imaginal doesn't have a no or an un. It doesn't have a non. So for example, if you were trying to quit smoking, I did once upon a time, it was terrible, because in order to think to yourself, I don't want to smoke anymore, you have to imagine that. You have to bring up the image of smoking, and then you have to draw a non-smoking sign through it, right? And so not only is that like twice as much for your brain to do, and then in order to tell yourself again that you don't want to do that, you have to bring up the image of the thing that makes you want to do it even more. I've had this with dieting as well. Like, oh, what are we not eating? Well, this is off the list and this is off the list. And a lot of people have found this. I think there's some good research on this. You could find that when you think of restrictions in your diet, when that's your primary orientation, it makes the whole thing harder. Whereas if your motivation, if you're being hypnotized or something to help you quit smoking, you're going to get more power out of thinking of taking clean, deep breaths and like running through the hills, taking full, deep breaths. You can imagine that extra 10 years that you get to spend with your family. You can imagine all those positives and never once have to bring up the drug. And this actually starts to help motivate you that way. Now, there's other aspects to this, but this is the first point, is that your brain your imaginal system doesn't have a non. It has to bring up the thing it wants and then put an X through it. So it's more efficient to just choose what you want. There's a power in wanting. The second one is thinking about what I don't want doesn't elicit my values. Last class, we talked about how upset feels powerful because it makes congruence. Well, value generation is a more sustainable version of creating congruence. When you think about like what your core values in this life are, right? Like mine are like spreading education around effective nonviolence and altruism, and about how that's actually how we're actually built. Like that's kind of what I feel like came to the planet to do. And when I plot courses for that, make lesson plans for that and stuff, my whole being turns on, right? My whole being turns on. I can go without eating I'll forget, because I'm like, wow, this is so great. When you think about what you want, it elicits those values. When you think about what you don't want, it doesn't have the same thing. Like, so if I were to think of like, instead of thinking, oh gosh, I want to really spread this gospel of communication that like my teachers have given me, that's so cool, that turns me on. And then if instead I go on the internet and I go, oh, you people, you don't know how to talk right to each other, you suck, you're always starting wars and battles, and that's actually going to disempower my system. It's going to put out all of this cortisol, which, just like that amygdala hijack, is great in a survival situation. Over time, pumping through your body, it reduces your health. We don't want that. So we want to think about what we want, because it's going to elicit those values, and it's actually going to elicit a whole different chemical cascade. So when I talk about what I don't want, it doesn't elicit my values. It only elicits disgust. Yikes. So what I want in life is always going to be tied to my values. That's what makes it make us happy. And our values are what are empowering. Number 3, when we ask for behavioral change from another, so those first two are just about kind of your own brain, mind, imaginal, endocrine system. Now, when we ask for change from another, this is where it becomes, like reducing painful conflict in our life. When we ask for them, well, all of that stuff is online, right? Because their brain doesn't have an we want to elicit their values as well. So if we want behavioral change from another, we have to ask for it. We have to ask for it. Some of you have tried this. You've tried hinting, you've tried subtle manipulation tactics, you've waited for them to intuit and then been mad that they didn't psychically know what you wanted. And we know that that doesn't work. Okay. So what do we usually do instead of ask? Well, there was that list I just gave you, but also often we try to change people's behavior by offering them our disgust. Oh gosh. So they don't do the dishes. And then we come home and, geez, these dishes are in the sink again. Oh, I feel terrible. And we just we fill the room with this atmosphere of how terrible we feel. We share that, right? It's misery loves company. And then, well, God, they still didn't do the dishes tomorrow. Our disgust, all that did was erode the intimacy in our relationship. We shared our misery. And so now there's two of us that feels miserable as well. If that caused behavior change, maybe it would be worthwhile, but it doesn't. What else do we do? Sometimes we withdraw, right? So they're doing something we dislike, and so we give them less of our attention. I have not yet found that without asking for what we want, like maybe that punishment will work if they know what you actually want. I haven't found that to work for behavioral change. What else? Oh, we tell them what we dislike. We tell them what's bothering us. What's wrong? I've just got to process something with you. You're behaving like this and this and this and this. And we give them a litany of why they're wrong. And often that litany just acts like a punishment. But take a look at conversations. Watch those soap operas again for your research. And you'll find very rarely do people give someone a clear statement of what they actually want. And then the last one, of course, is we assume that they should know. And there's that catchword, should. You should know. So we've value judged them. And that's basically equivalent to objectifying them. Okay. Often the person who we want behavioral change from never actually learns what we want in these situations. And so they have no hope of giving it to us. Our sharing of displeasure just becomes a wedge between us rather than an opportunity for them to choose something on our behalf. So if we tell someone what we want, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get it, but neither is any of that other stuff. When we tell them what we want, what we're doing in that Rev C protocol is we are offering them an opportunity to choose on our behalf. Now, they may not like our strategy, right? Usually our wants are our strategies, and we're going to learn about expressing our needs and our feelings so that we're not just expressing our strategy. But there's often a big chance that when you say, I want this, that they're going to say yes, because they know exactly what it is. So I propose to you, this is just the intro. We'll get more deep in this, but I think I'm running out of time on this vid. Oh, we got a couple minutes. So is that you can avoid 90%. I just pulled that number out of my head, but it feels right with my experience. You can avoid that by just asking for the person to do what you want, letting them know, this is what I want. And then what's cool is that they can say, I can't do that to you. We'll talk soon about willingness versus capability and all sorts of other cool little hacks with this about how to negotiate without even having to compromise. It's super neat. But oftentimes, like one that'll come up in relationship is I want you to hug me more often. And then you'll see this in couple counseling. It's super sad because the partner who wants hugs has been stonewalling and has been oh gosh, maybe our love languages are so different that this will never work out. And they've got one foot out the door, and the partner goes why didn't you say so? And it's just oh, it's so heartbreaking. And then the blessed thing is that the minute that heartbreak happens, change is on its way. But I've seen this over and over and over again, that people stonewall and they get angry, and then they offer their projection. We offer our projections of others, oh, I guess you're just not really a touchy-feely type of person. And okay, then all you get to relate with is that projection. If you would have said, would you be willing to give me some hugs? Sure. Well, that's not actually going to do it though. You have to say, would you be willing to give me 3 more hugs a day? And then all of a sudden person could go I can't do 3, but I can do 2. And then Whoa, well, that's not exactly what you wanted, but that's 2 more hugs than you were ever getting before, just by asking for what you want. You didn't have to throw a fit. You didn't have to like get a divorce. You just had to ask for more hugs. Oh my gosh, babe, when I wake up, I'm not ready to face the day. You've been up an hour early. Oh, this one's from real life. Excuse me. You've already been up for an hour, and I need to drink my coffee before we tackle anthropogenic climate change. If you bring that up while I'm in the midst of a coffee, you're going to hear mansplaining. You're going to hear curmudgeonliness, and I don't want to expose you to that. Would you be willing to wait until I finish my coffee to talk about climate change? Okay, that one's a negative. So I could do even better if I said, while I'm having my coffee, would you be willing to only talk about hope, choice, strategies, and eliciting our core values in positive terms? That's what I can handle. And you would be surprised at how agreeable people are when you offer them the ability to choose on your behalf. So lots of hacks, lots of specifics to make it work. But the basic thing is we want to get comfortable with asking for what we want. What's your assignment today? Think about the things that, this is your assignment. Bookmark this in your brain. Think about the things that piss you off or make you sad. Behind these uncomfortable emotions is a want for something. And so I'd like you to, pick 3 for your journal, do this as a little coffee, tea meditation, whatever. I'd like you in those 3 to frame in your mind, okay, when people talk trash to each other on the internet, that pisses me off because I want, and then what do you want? When, we subsidize companies to internalize profits while externalizing costs onto the rest of us, that pisses me off because I want, and then what do you want? Well, I want an actual equal society. I want environmental restoration and regeneration. And oh man, once I say those things, it elicits my values. So here's what I want. I want you eliciting your values because Uncle Faj wants you to be as powerful as you can. And that means you're going to have to ask for it. You're going to have to be really desirous, a bad Buddhist, really full of desire and empowered by it. So translate those into what you want and get clear on that. You'll be ready for our next lesson. I'll see you then.